Nissan commits to motor manufacturing in Britain, a big post-Brexit boost. 7,000 jobs in Sunderland are secured with 2 new models, but questions are raised about a sweetheart deal. On the day sluggish manufacturing took some of the shine off strong UK growth figures, the PM welcomes the decision.
This is a very important commitment of investment here in the UK. I think it shows the strength of our economy. We've been showing Nissan and others that we are committed to getting the best possible deal.
Also tonight, the young refugees arrested after sleeping rough in the remains of the Calais jungle.
A mother cries out in court as her son's accused of leaving a dangerous device on the London Underground.
And today's heroes share their memories to boost support of the British Legion's Poppy Appeal.
This is the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart and Charlene White.
Good evening. Sunderland has long been Nissan's base camp for huge sales here and into the rest of the European Union. For it to commit to the plant post-Brexit is a huge statement of intent. It secures 7,000 factory jobs and many more in the supply chain. Theresa May said it was fantastic news. Doubters asked at what price it had been secured.
The news came after better than expected UK growth figures. Only slower manufacturing casts a shadow, but the Nissan news eased concerns of a general slowdown. In a moment, we'll be live in Sunderland, but first, here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
While the government goes about constructing its Brexit deal, car manufacturers had been expected to park new investment. So Nissan's announcement that they will build the next Qashqai and the brand new X-Trail in Sunderland was a welcome surprise today. The question is, how did the government persuade them to do it?
We've been showing Nissan and others that we are committed to getting the best possible deal from the future relationship that we will be negotiating with the European Union, and we wish to ensure and assure the competitiveness of the British economy.
Only 2 weeks ago, a Qashqai parked up in Downing Street as Nissan's global boss Carlos Ghosn met Mrs May. But both the government and Nissan insist no special deal has been done.
The UK government has assured us that they will work with all of the automotive industry to make sure that we remain competitive, and we trust the government today as we've trusted them in the past, and they've moved heaven and earth to make sure that they give the assurances to our executive committee. So it's no more complicated than that.
Labour say it's part of a chaotic Brexit process.
Today we've heard of a deal with Nissan, which I welcome, but does this mean the government is going to do deal by deal, company by company or area by area? We just don't know.
What we do know is that it's not just Nissan in Sunderland that's had good economic news. The whole economy grew 0.5% in the 3 months following the referendum. Although that's a slight slowing, it was still better than expected and means the economy is 2.3% bigger than it was a year ago. The services sector powered the growth with a 0.8% increase, but elsewhere there was contraction. Construction, for example, fell by 1.4%. And the Chancellor, visiting Southampton today, said there are still challenges down the line.
We know that the decline of sterling means that we will be seeing some inflationary pressures coming through the economy. We know that businesses will be facing a period of uncertainty, not quite sure what the outcomes of the negotiations will be. So I think it is right that we still prepare to support the economy during this coming period.
It sounds strange to hear the Chancellor talking about supporting the economy on a day of economic good news, when the worst predictions about Brexit appear to have been confounded. But it's a sign of just how uncertain government and business are about what's coming next. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, the Nissan deal is a massive boost to Sunderland, the town which flew in the face of warnings about the car plant's future and overwhelmingly voted for Brexit. In the event, Sunderland is celebrating the fact that the jobs which are the lifeblood of that town have been secured. Damon Green is there for us tonight. Damon.
This is a region which has seen more than its fair share of job losses over the years, and for Nissan to stop manufacturing here would have been absolutely devastating. Everybody here knows that the decision could have gone either way, and so today's announcement brings the end to months of tension. the end of another shift on the day these workers heard their jobs are safe. For the thousands whose livelihoods depend directly and indirectly on the Nissan plant, a moment of huge relief. Imagining Sunderland without Nissan for these workers, next to impossible.
Nissan is the northeast. The amount of people that are affected by this company, if this was to go to the wall, the region would be dead.
At the end of the day, people need jobs to give themselves the lifestyle they want, to provide for their families, you know. But we're not just providing for our family now with this news, we're actually going to give all our families jobs. So in the future they can come work here as well. So maybe it's another 30 year, you know what I mean?
The total number of votes cast in favour of leave was 82,000.
The city voted by a big margin to leave the EU, despite being advised against it by Nissan bosses. And those who celebrated the result in Sunderland, like Samantha, carried shoulder high by fellow Leave supporters, say today's news shows they were right.
I'm thrilled with the decision that Nissan have made. I'm not at all surprised. I never thought for 1 minute that they'd pull out when they're doing so well. But the fact that it secured local people's jobs for the foreseeable future is amazing. And I just think, well, yeah, so put that in your pipe and smoke it, basically.
So Nissan won't be leaving home. After all, workers here are among the most productive in Europe. The people of Sunderland may need Nissan, but whatever their differences on Brexit, it seems Nissan needs them just as much. Damon Green, ITV News, in Sunderland.
Let's go back now to Carl Dinnan in Westminster. Carl, is Nissan staying significant to Theresa May? And is there any way that she'll be able to stop other companies from leaving?
Yes, this is hugely significant. As you just heard Damon say, Nissan wanted Britain to stay in the EU. Now they're staying in Britain, even though they don't know what Brexit will look like. And if they decided to go, it would have been seen as a complete disaster. The question is why? Now, they have said that reassurances were given to them and the whole automotive industry, and both Number 10 repeatedly, they were questioned on that here today, and Nissan say no special deal has been done for Nissan. So that raises the possibility that it is just these reassurances they've been given that have persuaded them that it will be safe for them to stay here. And that raises the suspicion, I can only call it a suspicion, that the government have shared something with Nissan about their negotiating strategy to save jobs that they're not able to yet tell the rest of us.
OK, Carl, thanks very much.
Several unaccompanied children who were reduced to sleeping rough after the demolition of the Calais migrant camp were arrested by French police today. Around 6,000 people have left the camp since Monday, but scores of children with no family remain on the site. The Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, tonight called on France to ensure these children are properly protected. From Calais, Sally Lookwood reports.
OK, are you 17 or younger?
Yes.
Oh, come.
The camp may be closed, but the problem's been dispersed. An estimated 200 miners are still in Calais with nowhere to go. Many of them slept rough along this road last night, and tonight it's no clearer if they have any other option. Those who tried to stay in the camp were arrested today. Aid workers who caught it on camera say they're children and have not been seen since. A charity introduced me to another group, determined the UK is the only place they want to end up.
I don't want to live in France or in another country. I don't want to.
Why not?
No, I have my family there. What I will do in France or somewhere else, I have my family there.
While some waited for an update, others cut their losses and headed to the motorway.
Where are you going?
UK.
You're going to the UK?
Yeah,
Yes. They've been waiting here for hours now, not sure of exactly what they're waiting for. There was an announcement a few moments ago to say buses are arriving to take them to temporary accommodation in France. But there's a strong belief here that if you're a child, you have the right to go to the UK. These people all say they're minors, and many say they're not getting on buses to take them further away from where they want to go.
And messages like this one from Home Secretary Amber Rudd are fueling that hope.
We have a very strict, but I hope generous approach to it, making sure we assess and bring over the ones who really are the most vulnerable, who are under 18, who are better off being in the UK.
Police began to push this group back tonight. It's unclear where they were to go. But returning to the camp is no longer an option, and around 1,000 migrants are now thought to be on the move in the Calais area, amid warnings they could face arrest. Sally Lockwood, ITV News, Calais.
Belgian politicians today finally managed to overcome the final obstacle to a landmark free trade agreement between the EU and Canada. The deal had been supported by all other EU governments, but was being blocked by one small assembly in Belgium, worried by its impact on their regional trade. Canada called today's announcement a positive development.
And here the family of a retired nurse who died in a fall from a motorway bridge said health chiefs could have prevented her death. The coroner said the case of Marion Munns, who had depression, was a wake-up call for Southern Health Trust.
A teenager appeared in court today charged with planting a bomb on a London tube train that caused a major security alert. The hearing was briefly interrupted when the mother of Damon Smith, who's 19 and has a form of autism, called out her concerns about him. Juliette Bremner was there.
Arriving at court with the word love on her jumper, Damon Smith's mother watched as her son was accused of making an explosive device. The 19-year-old spotted her as he was brought into court and started waving, smiling and making a thumbs-up gesture.
His mother sat in the public gallery and became increasingly distressed as details of the charge were read out. At one stage she stood up and called out, "My son doesn't understand. I'm sorry, but he's got Asperger's," before being persuaded to sit down.
It's alleged Smith left a rucksack in the carriage of a tube train where 12 passengers were sitting. It caused a major security alert at North Greenwich near the O2 Arena. The prosecutor claimed today the device, which contained ball bearings, was viable. It was defused by bomb disposal officers. Mother and son moved to London from Devon 6 months ago. The defence confirmed Damon Smith was autistic and believed this was a prank. Today he was told he must remain in custody until the next court appearance in 3 weeks' time. Juliette Bremner, ITV News.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News. The biggest mass extinction since the dinosaurs, why global wildlife numbers are plummeting.
And rethinking remembrance. This year's Poppy Appeal is asking us to remember a younger generation of veterans too. Those stories and more after the break.
Welcome back. It's being claimed tonight that the world wildlife is heading for a fate similar to the dinosaurs. Conservationists are predicting nothing less than global mass extinction by the end of the decade. Wildlife populations have been falling at an average rate of 2% a year since 1970. This drastic collapse affecting the numbers of mammals, birds, fish, amphibians and reptiles is the worst for 65 million years. At this rate, by 2020, 67% of the world's wildlife will have been wiped out. And as Ben Chapman reports from Chester Zoo, humans are to blame.
We've known for years the threat of extinction hanging over some of our most revered animals. But today's survey by conservationists suggests many hundreds of species are not just facing decline, but wipeout on a scale not seen since the dinosaurs.
Sooner or later we really need to understand that this is a catastrophe and extinction is forever, and that a lot of the species that we're familiar with will disappear from this planet.
At Chester Zoo, they're pioneering new conservation techniques to help frogs. Pollution has contributed to a 90% drop in the numbers of amphibians since the 70s. Animals living on land have declined by 40%.
What they all have in common is it's people who are causing their decline. There are now fewer than 4,000 tigers left in the wild because of the loss of their habitat and conflict with humans.
Poaching has led to a massive decline in the African elephant. Numbers are down by a quarter in 10 years to just 400,000. Numbers of European eel are down by 90% since the 70s because of hydroelectric dams. And the South American maned wolf has been hunted to near extinction. Only 23,000 are left. In contrast, the human population has doubled, and the report's author says a human solution is now urgently required.
One of the big things we need to do is to work together, bring industry, policymakers and individuals to work together. But I think as an individual, people often ask, what can I do? And I think do something is the important thing. Whether it's write to your MP, whether it's eat a bit less meat, join an organisation, as long as someone does something, that's the important thing.
If the trend continues, conservationists warn creatures like the black rhino will only be seen in zoos. The outlook, they say, has never been bleaker for future generations of animals. Ben Chapman, ITV News, Chester Zoo.
The London Olympic Stadium was supposed to be the crowning legacy of the 2012 Games, but last night that legacy was marred by violence.
Police are investigating a series of clashes between West Ham and Chelsea football fans, during which an 8-year-old girl was pelted with coins. Tonight, West Ham said it would be banning 200 fans. Our sports editor Steve Scott reports.
Once filled with memories from Britain's golden Olympic summer, this stadium is now developing a very different type of reputation. Rival fans ripping up and hurling seats, taunting each other and pelting each other with coins. 8-year-old Victoria Streeter was one of those hit last night. She says she's now unlikely to watch Chelsea away from Stamford Bridge.
It kind of made me feel like it really upset me because I never went to a game that violent, and that's why I'm kind of scared to go to a away game again, because I'm scared that might happen, and I'm not sure now.
A large police presence outside before and after the game seemed to diffuse the potential for serious trouble. But once inside, stewards struggled to keep rival fans apart.
There's not enough stewards, they can't do anything.
Away fans sit in two areas in the Sir Trevor Brookings stand. In the lower tier, both sets of supporters share a temporary structure over the athletics track. A line of stewards and some empty seating divides them. They also share a small concourse at the back of the stand.
In defence of West Ham and the stadium owners, as this is a relatively new venue for football, it was always bound to present early security challenges. However, there has been trouble here on more than one occasion already this season, and last night was well signposted as a high-risk match.
One former officer believes unless more police are deployed inside, the stadium's safety certificate should be questioned.
People who really know football should have worked these issues out. We shouldn't now be going along in the season having problem after problem, and frankly it's getting to the stage where it's dangerous.
West Ham have just revealed they plan to ban 200 of their fans for life as a result of last night's violence. A tough stance that may go some way to solving this recurring problem. Steve Scott, ITV News, the London Stadium.
A small community in Dorset, a project which began as the brainchild of the Prince of Wales, played host to a rare joint appearance by the royal family's most senior members today. The Queen, Prince Philip and Prince Charles, along with the Duchess of Cornwall, were visiting Poundbury near Dorchester to unveil a special monument in honour of the Queen Mother.
It is with immense pride and in loving memory of my darling grandmother that I invite your Majesty to unveil the statue of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, and thus to declare open her square.
Well, the bronze sculpture is identical to one that stands on the Mall in London, which depicts the Queen Mother when she was 51 years old. Afterwards, there was an even rarer appearance by the Queen in a local supermarket. Staff presented her with a large hamper, and I'm assured there were plenty of treats inside for the royal corgis.
Finally, for decades, the Poppy Appeal has been seen by many as a way of helping elderly veterans and honouring their comrades who fell serving in Britain's armed forces.
Younger veterans of more recent conflicts have also always formed an important part of the appeal. But this year, as Olivia Kinsley reports, their plight is being given special emphasis.
They were both soldiers decades apart. Today, they are both veterans. Pete Dunning joined the Royal Marines when he was 20 years old. Within 6 months, he was serving in Afghanistan.
We were in a lot of firefights with the Taliban. I did lose a couple of friends, and some friends did drive over some IEDs as well, so which was horrible to see.
In 2008, it happened to him.
My driver, he passed away unfortunately instantly, and another chap in the vehicle who got badly injured and badly burnt. I lost my legs, I fractured my spine, punctured my lungs, and I've got burns to all 4 limbs as well. It was just the hardest time of my life and the darkest time of my life, to be honest. There were days where I just told the nurses just to shut the curtains because I didn't want to see anyone or do anything really.
This year's Poppy Appeal wants to focus on young veterans as well as old.
When the metal detector sounds, your stomach knots.
Jeffrey Pattinson understands trauma. He was shot in both legs during the Second World War, and for half a century he felt unable to talk about his experiences. He says modern conflicts are just as horrific.
The young people must feel the same as I did. They're faced with a lot of danger with the IEDs and the suicide bombers, which I never had to contend with.
We have been to war. We have seen horrendous sights, myself included.
They fought in different eras, but they share the horrors of war. Olivia Kinsley, ITV News.
And poppies go on general sale from this Saturday. Tom Bradbury will be here later with news at 10.
But from all of us here on the team, have a very good evening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.